So today we're going to talk about bass in the winter, you know, how they react to these fronts that come through, and you know, kind of where they go to, and what happens, you know, what experience I've had over the last, gosh, a lot of years in fishing in the winter. And I'll say this, winter to me, I'd rather fish in the winter and the pre-spawn over everything else. To me, the fish in the winter going up to that pre-spawn, they're just so predictable. You know, and I get a lot of questions at seminars and you know, comments online. You know, what happens whenever these fish, these fronts come through? And a good example, you know, you go out and you're fishing, and say you go out on Thursday and these fish are hung up, you know, in a channel bin in a creek. And then you go out Saturday, fish a jackpot, and you pull up there and they're not there. Or you were catching them on a jerk bait, and all of a sudden, you know, you can't catch them jerking. The good thing that we have now is live scope. Well, you can see a lot of where they go to in most cases. But we're going to kind of go through the active captain on the map and kind of give you some examples of what I've seen over the past, in my career, I guess I should say. So we've hit on these, some of this over, you know, in previous videos, but you know, I don't even know what lake this is. I just zoomed in. It actually says Coosa River. So, you know, there's a reason that in the wintertime these fish get on these steeper banks, and you know, in my opinion, and the reason they like this steeper stuff, you know, 45 to even vertical stuff, is because of the fronts. And when I say that's not 45 into the vertical, I'm not just talking about the bank that you see. Also, you know, the drops, you know, the ledges out there. I think they like that stuff because, you know, if say we get a warming trend, you know, they can move up in the water column and not travel a long ways. Also, you know, the same way on structure, these ledges, like they can move up and down and not have to travel, you know, a half a mile to get to 30 foot of water. And, you know, say we got a big front that came in and it gets super cold and these fish want to go deeper, they don't have to travel a long ways. And over the years, I'll tell you this, like, I don't think when these fronts come in, I don't think these fish travel a long ways. You know, I've seen them travel, you know, a few hundred yards, but not a mile or something like that. But I think one of the things that really is the deciding factor, I don't think the fish travel as much. I think it's the bait that's what travels. And I think, you know, therefore, when the bait travels, you know, a lot of these fish are going to travel with them. So I'm just going to zoom in right here and say, you know, we're fishing, you know, this channel swing right here on the main river. And, you know, say one day I pull up here, the weather's, you know, nice, it's been stable, and I'm catching them on this, you know, this point right here, this flat point. All of a sudden, you know, we get a hard front come in. I mean, you know, 10 degrees, 20 degrees at night. If I were just to predict where these fish were going to go, they're going to move around and get on this ledge style stuff. And, you know, I've seen this where, you know, maybe the day before or something, you know, I pull up and I catch them on a jerk bait. You know, they're up high, sunning, I call them floating around. And I'm catching them jerking, and then we get a big front come through. Well, a lot of times, really all you got to do is maybe just switch baits. You know, I look on live scope, I see they've dropped down a lot. Maybe I just got to go to a jig, something on the bottom, or a, you know, a crankbait. Maybe I got to bang the rocks to get them to bite. But in the wintertime, whenever you get these fronts like this, always try to imagine just deep water access. Even some of the shallower lakes, you know, that I fish around here, deep water is relative, that term is relative to the body of water you're fishing. On the Arkansas River, deep water is 8 or 9 or 10 foot. You know, on Lake Tenkiller or Grand Lake, deep water is 30. So it's all relative to where you're fishing. Florida lakes, deep water is 3 or 4 or 5 foot. So it's all relative to where you're fishing. And typically, you know, in the wintertime, like I said, if I want these steeper banks, and I really like the steeper stuff around the mouths of these creeks, because I believe, like this creek here, I believe there's fish that, giant, big schools of fish that just live in this creek. You know, they move back here, they spawn, and as the winter, these cold fronts come in, they pull out here around the mouth somewhere. I think that's your biggest populations of fish, is around these bigger creeks. And the whole thing is just being able to find them in the wintertime when they set up. And, you know, I said earlier that I love the winter because it's pretty predictable on where these fish are going to pull back to. And what I like to do a lot of times in these bigger creeks is I'll go back kind of to the deepest water, the last deep water, and then I start working my way out, and pretty soon you're going to run across them. But just remember, when you're out there and you get these fronts, they're not going to travel a mile. If you find them, they're going to be in the general quarter-mile vicinity, and a lot of times on that steeper stuff, they're just going to bounce down on those breaks, and they're going to follow that bait. So hopefully you learned something, and I appreciate you riding along.